On a cold November morning in 2019, in the quiet town of Cedar Falls, Iowa, a macabre discovery on the banks of the Cedar River would forever change the life of a family and leave investigators with more questions than answers. What began as a missing person case transformed into the most disturbing criminal mystery in the city's history. A case that, to this day, remains unsolved. If you enjoy real true crime and cases that defy all investigative logic, subscribe to the EE channel and activate the notification bell to not miss any detail of this investigation that continues open. Today, we will dive deeply into the disappearance of Samantha Wilson, a 24-year-old young woman whose story reveals circumstances so macabre and inexplicable that even veteran investigators admitted never having seen anything similar. You will discover forensic evidence that contradicts all theories, witnesses whose testimonies make no sense when confronted, and a crime that seems to have been carefully planned by someone who intimately knew every movement of the victim. Prepare yourself, because this is not just the story of a disappearance. It is the story of a perfect crime that left only one haunting question. Who really was Samantha Wilson? And why would someone want her to simply disappear? Samantha Elizabeth Wilson was 24 years old when her life was brutally interrupted in October of 2019. Standing 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighing approximately 128 pounds, Samantha possessed dark brown hair that fell in natural waves to her shoulders and expressive green eyes that, according to her friends, illuminated any environment she entered. A small scar above her left eyebrow, the result of a bicycle fall in childhood, was her only visible distinguishing mark. Born and raised in Cedar Falls, Samantha was the middle child in a family of 3 siblings. Her parents, Robert Wilson, 52 years, old manager of a local hardware store, and Linda Wilson, 49 years old, elementary school teacher, described their daughter as a determined and caring young woman who always put family first. Sam had this special way of making everyone feel important, her mother remembered. She truly listened when you spoke to her. She didn't pretend to be paying attention. She really cared. Graduated in psychology from the University of Northern Iowa in May of 2019, Samantha was in the process of applying for master's programs in clinical psychology. Her professors described her as an exceptional student, particularly interested in working with traumatized children. She had a natural empathy that cannot be taught, commented Dr. Margaret Foster, her internship supervisor. Samantha could establish connections with children that other therapists considered difficult cases. Professionally, Samantha worked part-time as an administrative assistant at the Cedar Falls Mental Health Center while doing volunteer work on weekends at a shelter for women victims of domestic violence. Work colleagues highlighted her impeccable punctuality. In 2 years of employment, Samantha had never missed a single day without advance notice. Her daily routine was meticulously organized. She woke up at 6:30 every day, went for a 5-kilometer run through Municipal Park, had breakfast at home with her parents, and arrived at work at exactly 8:30. During lunch, she frequently visited the municipal library to study for master's program admission exams. After work, at 5 o'clock, she usually stopped at the local market to help with household shopping before returning home around 6:30. In relationships, Samantha was known for her unwavering loyalty. She had been dating Tyler Martinez, 26 years old, an automotive mechanic, for 2 years. Tyler, described by friends as a quiet and hard-working guy, had proposed to Samantha 3 months before her disappearance. She was radiant about the engagement, recounted her best friend, Jessica Chen. She spent hours on Pinterest planning the wedding. It was supposed to be in June of 2021. She wanted something simple, just family and close friends. Samantha's social circle was small but solid. Besides Jessica, with whom she maintained friendship since high school, she was close to her two sisters, Rebecca, 28 years old, and Catherine, 21 years old. The three met religiously every Tuesday for dinner at their parents' house, a family tradition that Samantha never missed. Her hobbies reflected her careful and attentive personality. She maintained an herb garden on the back porch of her parents' house, created meticulously organized family scrapbook albums, and had a collection of more than 200 psychology and personal development books. Every Sunday, she prepared lunch for an elderly neighbor, Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell, 87 years old, who lived alone 2 houses down. Sam had this thing about always taking care of everyone before thinking about herself, remembered her father, Robert. If someone needed something, she was there. It didn't matter if it was 2 in the morning or if she had an exam the next day. That sometimes worried me. She gave too much of herself. Financially, Samantha was extremely responsible. She had saved $12,000 for her master's degree, kept all bills current, and still managed to contribute $300 monthly to household expenses. She had no vices, drank only socially, and had never used illicit drugs. She had no known enemies, had never received threats, and according to everyone who knew her, there was nothing in her life that could explain what was about to happen. This was this young woman, responsible, loving, predictable in her kindness, who, on an apparently ordinary October afternoon, would simply disappear without leaving traces, initiating a mystery that would challenge all investigative logic and reveal circumstances so disturbing that they would forever change how the Cedar Falls community viewed the safety of their small city. What Samantha Wilson did not know, while following her meticulous routine on that fatal Tuesday, was that someone had studied each of her movements with macabre precision, and that in a few hours she would become the center of the most inexplicable criminal case that Iowa had ever witnessed. Tuesday, October 15th, 2019, dawned cold and gray in Cedar Falls. The temperature marked 8 degrees Celsius at 6:30 in the morning, with a fine drizzle that created a dense fog over the Cedar River. It was exactly the type of morning that Samantha Wilson loved for her morning run, the fresh air and tranquility of the city still asleep. As always, Samantha woke up at the exact time, 6:30. Linda Wilson, her mother, remembers hearing the alarm clock ring in her daughter's room, followed by the familiar sound of her steps descending the wooden stairs that creaked on the 3rd step. "It was our routine," Linda would later tell investigators. "I always heard when she came downstairs. That morning was no different from any other, until it wasn't." At 6:45, Samantha left for her 5-kilometer run through Municipal Park. Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell, the 87-year-old elderly neighbor who woke up early due to insomnia, saw her running past Elm Street as she did every morning. "She waved to me from the window," Mrs. Hartwell told the police. "She always did that. She was such a polite girl. She wore that light pink running jacket that I always recognized." Samantha's route was invariable. She went down Elm Street, entered the park through the main entrance, ran 2 complete laps on the 2.5-kilometer trail, and returned home by the same path. The total time never varied more than 5 minutes, always between 35 to 40 minutes. At 7:22, she returned home, sweaty but smiling. Robert Wilson was having coffee in the kitchen when she entered. She commented that the park was especially beautiful with the morning fog, he would recall. Said it looked like a movie scene. Samantha always noticed these things. She had an artistic eye for the world. After her shower, at 8:05, Samantha came down for breakfast. Linda had prepared scrambled eggs with whole grain toast, her daughter's favorite breakfast. During the 20 minutes they spent together at the table, they talked about plans for that night's family dinner. Rebecca and Catherine would come at 7 o'clock, and Samantha had offered to prepare her famous chicken stew. She seemed completely normal, Linda insisted. There was nothing, absolutely nothing different about her behavior. She was excited to see her sisters, mentioned that Tyler would pick her up from work at 5:30 to go buy ingredients for dinner. Everything was perfectly normal. At 8:25, Samantha took her brown leather bag, a graduation gift from her parents, and drove to work in her blue 2016 Honda Civic. The distance to the mental health center was only 8 minutes by car, and she always arrived between 8:30 and 8:35. Margaret Torres, the center's receptionist, confirmed that Samantha arrived at 8:33. She greeted everyone as she always did, Margaret reported. She seemed to be in a good mood. She commented that she was anxious for lunch because she wanted to review some materials for the master's exams at the library. The work morning proceeded normally. Samantha organized patient files, scheduled appointments for the following week, and assisted Dr. Patricia Reynolds with preparations for a departmental meeting. Colleagues noticed she seemed particularly productive, finishing tasks with characteristic efficiency. At 12:15, Samantha left for lunch. She carried a wine-colored study folder and her stainless steel water bottle, items she religiously took to her study sessions at the library. "See you at 1:30, she said to Margaret as she left. These were the last confirmed words that Samantha Wilson spoke. The Cedar Falls Municipal Library is only 3 blocks from the mental health center. Samantha usually walked there, preferring the extra exercise. Ruth Patterson, librarian for 23 years, knew Samantha's routine well. She always sat at the same table on the second floor, near the window overlooking the Cedar River. She always requested the same types of books: clinical psychology, child development, trauma therapy. That Tuesday, Ruth saw Samantha arrive at the library at 12:28. She seemed to be looking for something specific on the shelves, Ruth would recall. Normally, she went straight to the study table, but this time, she spent several minutes in the criminal psychology section. I thought it was strange, but didn't give it importance at the time. At 12:45, William Chen, father of Samantha's best friend, saw her leaving the library carrying 2 books. She seemed hurried, William told the police. Normally, Samantha stayed at the library until at least 1:15. It was unusual to see her leave so early. And then, simply, Samantha Wilson disappeared. At 1:30, when she didn't return to work, Margaret Torres called her cell phone. The call went straight to voicemail. At 1:45, worried, Margaret called the Wilson house. Linda didn't know where her daughter was. At 5:30, Tyler Martinez arrived at the mental health center to pick up Samantha. He found a small group of worried colleagues and Margaret Torres visibly distressed. He went pale when he learned she hadn't returned from lunch, Margaret reported. Tyler wasn't the type to panic, but at that moment, I saw real fear in his eyes. Samantha's blue Honda Civic was found at 6:15 by a library employee in the municipal parking lot, 2 blocks from the library. The vehicle was locked, with no signs of break-in. Inside, everything seemed normal. Her purse was on the passenger seat, the wallet intact with $73 in cash, and all credit cards. Her keys were in the ignition. But there was something deeply disturbing about the scene. On the back seat, carefully organized as if someone had placed them purposely, were the 2 books that Samantha had checked out from the library. The titles sent a chill down investigators' spines. Criminal Profiles, The Mind of the Predator, and Forensic Interrogation Techniques. Samantha Wilson had disappeared without a trace between 12:45 and 1:30, in broad daylight, in the center of a small town where everyone knew everyone. And the only traces left behind suggested that, for some macabre reason, she had spent her last free moments studying exactly the type of crime that was about to victimize her. The news of Samantha Wilson's disappearance spread through Cedar Falls with the speed of a forest fire. At 7:30, when she should have been sitting at the dinner table with her sisters, more than 50 people were already gathering in the mental health center parking lot, organizing improvised search teams. Detective Sarah Morrison, an 18-year veteran of the Cedar Falls Police Department, took over the case at 8:15. "I immediately knew something was very wrong," Morrison would recall later. "In small towns like ours, people don't simply disappear, and when they disappear, there's usually a logical explanation. This case was different from the first minute." Morrison's first decision was controversial. She treated the disappearance as a possible kidnapping from the beginning, ignoring the standard protocol of waiting 48 hours. "The books in the car changed everything," she explained. "A young woman studying criminal psychology hours before disappearing? That wasn't coincidence. It was a sign." At 9 o'clock, Morrison had established a search perimeter of 5 kilometers around the city center. 3 K-9 teams were requested from the Waterloo Police Department, and a helicopter from the Iowa State Patrol was dispatched to Cedar Falls. The operation mobilized 89 police officers and 200 civilian volunteers, the largest search in Black Hawk County history. Tyler Martinez immediately became the primary person of interest. During a 4-hour interrogation that lasted until 2 in the morning, he provided a detailed alibi. He had been working at Peterson's auto repair shop since 8 in the morning, with documented breaks for lunch, 12 to 12:30, and a snack, 3 to 3:15. 5 co-workers confirmed his presence, and security cameras from the shop corroborated his testimony. "Tyler was genuinely devastated," Morrison observed. "He cried during most of the EQ interrogation. Either he was an extremely talented sociopath, or he was truly desperate to find Samantha. My experience told me it was the latter." The Wilson family was also extensively questioned. Robert and Linda provided a detailed timeline of the morning, while Rebecca and Catherine confirmed they hadn't spoken to Samantha since the previous Monday. Financial checks revealed no suspicious transactions in Samantha's accounts, and analysis of her cell phone, found in her purse in the car, showed no unusual calls, messages, or online activity. The second morning of investigation brought the first significant clue, and the most disturbing. Ruth Patterson, the librarian, remembered a crucial detail. When Samantha was looking for the criminal psychology books, a man was watching her from the newspapers section. "I thought it was just casual curiosity, but now I'm not sure." Ruth's description was vague. White male, between 30 to 40 years old, average height, dark hair, wearing a navy blue jacket. "He seemed to know Samantha's habits," Ruth recalled. "He stayed there for almost an hour before she arrived, as if he was waiting." Library security cameras confirmed the presence of the described man, but the image quality was insufficient for facial identification. Even more disturbing, analysis of recordings from the previous 5 days showed the same individual at the library every day at the same time, always observing the area where Samantha usually studied. Someone had studied Samantha's routine meticulously, Morrison concluded. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. It was deliberate planning. The investigation expanded to forensic analysis of the Honda Civic. Technicians found fingerprints from 4 different people on the vehicle: Samantha, Tyler, Robert, and Linda, all explainable. More intriguing was the total absence of prints on the external driver's side door handle, suggesting someone had carefully cleaned the surface. DNA collected from the seats revealed genetic material from Samantha and Tyler, consistent with regular use, but samples from the back seat, where the books were found, contained unidentified DNA of male origin. It was as if someone had deliberately left evidence of their presence, observed Dr. Michael Foster, forensic specialist. Experienced criminals know how to avoid leaving DNA. This individual seemed to want us to know he had been there. The most macabre aspect of the investigation emerged in the IE analysis of the criminal psychology books. Specific pages had been marked with yellow post-its, pages that detailed kidnapping techniques without leaving evidence, methods of disposing of forensic evidence, and psychological profiles of organized predators. It was as if someone was giving us an instruction manual for the crime itself, Morrison reported with evident disturbance. The marked pages were exactly the aspects we were facing: disappearance without witnesses, absence of physical evidence, meticulous planning. 72 hours after the disappearance, the investigation had produced more questions than answers. Samantha Wilson had simply disappeared, leaving behind only carefully orchestrated evidence that suggested a crime planned by someone with intimate knowledge of criminal investigation. The Cedar Falls community, accustomed to the safety of a small town where everyone knew everyone, faced a terrifying reality. A predator was among them, someone intelligent enough to commit the perfect crime, leaving only enough clues to torment investigators and family members. And for the Wilson family, each hour that passed without news of Samantha transformed hope into despair, and despair into a macabre pain that was only beginning to reveal itself. The first 6 months after Samantha Wilson's disappearance were marked by a relentless search that gradually transformed into a painful vigil. Detective Sarah Morrison kept the case active, but as days, weeks, and months passed, the leads became increasingly cold, and the Wilson family's hope began to fragment into smaller and smaller pieces. Linda Wilson developed a macabre routine that became her new normal. Every morning at 6:30, when Samantha's alarm clock used to ring, she positioned herself at the kitchen window and observed Elm Street, waiting to see her daughter's familiar light pink running jacket appear at the corner. "I knew it was irrational," Linda would confess later, "but I couldn't stop. It was as if, by stopping looking, I was giving up on her." Robert Wilson channeled his pain differently, but equally obsessively. He transformed Samantha's room into an improvised command center, with detailed maps of Iowa, investigation timelines, and copies of all police reports he could obtain. In the evenings, after work at the hardware store, he spent hours analyzing every detail, looking for connections that investigators might have missed. Samantha's sisters reacted to the trauma in opposite ways. Rebecca, the oldest, completely isolated herself, moving to Des Moines and avoiding any conversation about the disappearance. Catherine, the youngest, became hypervigilant, obsessively checking house locks and developing panic attacks whenever someone arrived unexpectedly. Tyler Martinez was perhaps the most devastated of all. Despite being officially eliminated as a suspect after 3 months of investigation, the initial suspicion left deep scars on his reputation in small Cedar Falls. "People whispered when I passed," Tyler would recount years later. "Even after my innocence was proven, some always wondered. That destroyed me almost as much as losing Samantha." The Cedar Falls community developed a collective paranoia that fundamentally transformed the city's character. Children who had previously played freely in the streets were now constantly accompanied by parents. Business owners installed elaborate security systems in establishments that had never even locked their doors. The municipal library, where Samantha was last seen, experienced a 60% drop in attendance in the first 2 years after the disappearance. Detective Morrison continued actively investigating for 18 months, following more than 400 leads that proved to be dead ends. The mysterious man from the library was never identified, despite posters with his image being distributed throughout the Midwest. It was as if he had simply materialized for those 5 days and then disappeared from the face of the earth, Morrison observed with evident frustration. 3 main theories emerged during the first 2 years of investigation. The first suggested that Samantha had been victim of an itinerant serial killer, a theory supported by the meticulous planning and absence of local connections. The FBI was consulted and identified 6 similar cases in neighboring states in the last 10 years, but no evidence definitively connected the crimes. The second theory, more disturbing, proposed that someone from the community itself was involved, someone who intimately knew Samantha's routine and had privileged access to information about criminal investigation. This possibility created an atmosphere of distrust that divided families and destroyed century-old friendships. The third theory, considered the most unlikely, but that stubbornly persisted, suggested that Samantha had disappeared voluntarily, perhaps fleeing from some aspect of her life she kept secret. This theory was vehemently rejected by family and friends, but the total absence of evidence of violent crime kept it technically plausible. In 2021, 2 years after the disappearance, the Cedar Falls Police Department officially transferred the case to cold case status. Dead file. Morrison, who had retired 6 months earlier, handed over 2,847 pages of investigative documentation to successor detective Marcus Webb, a veteran transferred from the Des Moines Police Department specifically to review unsolved cases. Webb brought a fresh perspective and more modern investigative methods. He reorganized all evidence, submitted DNA samples for analysis with more advanced technology, and initiated a systematic review of similar cases in national databases. Sometimes, time and technology reveal things we didn't see before, Webb explained to the Wilson family in their first meeting. During 2022, the investigation gained new momentum when improved DNA analysis of samples from Samantha's Honda Civic revealed a more complete genetic profile of the unidentified male DNA found on the back seat. The profile was entered into the National CODIS, Combined DNA Index System, but generated no matches. More intriguing was the discovery, through more sophisticated digital forensic analysis, that Samantha's cell phone had briefly connected to a cell tower located 15 kilometers north of Cedar Falls at 2:37 on the day of her disappearance, 1 hour after she was last seen. This connection lasted only 12 seconds, suggesting the device was quickly turned on and then turned off or destroyed. This completely changed our understanding of the timeline, Webb explained. It meant that Samantha, or at least her phone, had been taken out of the city. This narrowed our search area, but also confirmed our worst fears. The cell tower location was in a sparsely populated rural area, known mainly for corn and soybean farms. Renewed searches of the region with ground-penetrating radar equipment revealed several soil anomalies, but careful excavations found only old agricultural debris and foundations of buildings demolished decades before. For the Wilson family, each new revelation brought a cruel mixture of renewed hope and amplified pain. Each false lead was like losing Samantha again. Linda Wilson developed a macabre ritual of visiting the cell tower site every month, leaving wildflowers, Samantha's favorites, on a nearby fence. I don't know if I want her to be found, Linda confessed during a 2023 interview. Part of me needs to know what happened, but another part is afraid of what we'll discover. As long as she's not found, I can still imagine that somehow, somewhere, she's still alive. On November 17, 2023, exactly 4 years and 1 month after Samantha Wilson's disappearance, a macabre discovery on an abandoned rural property 18 kilometers from Cedar Falls would forever change the course of the investigation and plunge the Wilson family into a new dimension of horror. Marcus Webb received the call at 7:42 on a particularly cold morning. David Kowalski, a 54-year-old deer hunter, had found something disturbing while checking traps on a forest property he leased for hunting. He was visibly shaken when he called, Webb would recall. He just said, "Detective, you need to come here now. I found something I think is hers." The property, locally known as Holloway Farm, due to the former owners, had been abandoned since 2015, when the heirs moved to California after the patriarch's death. The main house, a 2-story construction from 1940, was in ruins, with broken windows and wild vegetation taking over the ground floor rooms. Kowalski led Webb to a natural depression in the terrain, approximately 200 meters behind the abandoned house, where an old concrete cistern had been sealed decades before. The metal cover was partially displaced, Kowalski explained, still trembling. When I looked inside with the flashlight, I saw something that wasn't natural. Inside the cistern, 4 meters deep, the forensic team discovered a scene that defied all criminal logic. Carefully organized at the bottom of the structure were personal objects unquestionably belonging to Samantha Wilson. Her light pink running jacket, the wine-colored study folder she carried to the library, and her stainless steel water bottle. Even more disturbing was the way the items were arranged. The jacket was spread out as if someone had carefully placed it to dry, with arms positioned symmetrically. The folder was open, with documents scattered in a perfect circular pattern. The water bottle was in the exact center of the arrangement, in vertical position, still half full of liquid. "It was like a macabre altar," observed Dr. Lisa Chen, forensic anthropologist called to analyze the scene. The arrangement was very deliberate, almost ritualistic. Whoever did this wanted the objects to be found exactly this way. Initial forensic analysis of the objects revealed several disturbing discoveries. Samantha's jacket contained DNA from 3 different individuals. Samantha, an unidentified male source, matching the DNA found in her car, and surprisingly, a 3rd female source that didn't correspond to any Wilson family member. The study folder contained documents that Samantha had prepared for her master's applications, but also included papers she definitely hadn't created. Detailed copies of police reports about her own disappearance, including information that was never made public. It was as if someone was documenting the investigation in real time, Webb observed with evident disturbance. Even more macabre was the content of the water bottle. Chemical analysis revealed that the liquid wasn't water, but a preservative solution used in forensic laboratories, diluted formaldehyde. This required specialized knowledge, explained Dr. Robert Martinez, forensic chemist from the state laboratory. It's not something an ordinary person would know how to prepare or what to use it for. The cistern itself revealed equally disturbing evidence. Soil analysis at the bottom showed it had been systematically cleaned with industrial chemicals, eliminating almost all organic evidence. Careful excavations revealed only microscopic fabric fragments that matched Samantha's jacket and hair samples that, when analyzed, confirmed to be hers. More disturbing was the discovery of electronic monitoring equipment buried in the cistern walls. Small cameras and recording devices powered by solar batteries, had been recording the interior of the structure for years. Whoever did this wanted to document when the objects were discovered, Webb concluded. It was a macabre game. He was watching our investigation. Analysis of monitoring data revealed that the objects had been placed in the cistern only 3 months before being found, more than 3 years after Samantha's disappearance. This meant that, during all this time, someone had kept her belongings in another location, carefully preserving them before creating this macabre scene. The recordings also captured something even more disturbing: images of a hooded figure visiting the site monthly, always on the same date, the 15th, the anniversary of Samantha's disappearance. The figure remained at the site for exactly 24 minutes, apparently performing some kind of silent ritual. News of the discovery devastated the Wilson family in unimaginable ways. Linda Wilson completely collapsed upon learning that her daughter's belongings had been preserved and manipulated for years by an unknown predator. "It's as if he had been torturing our family all this time," she whispered through tears. "He didn't just kill our daughter, but turned our pain into some kind of sick entertainment." For Tyler Martinez, the discovery brought a complex mixture of relief and renewed horror. "I always knew something terrible had happened to Samantha," he said. "But knowing someone had been playing with our pain for all these years, that's monstrous." The Cedar Falls community reacted to the discovery with a mixture of relief at finally having concrete evidence and renewed terror at the macabre nature of the crime. "It's not just that we lost Samantha," commented Mayor Patricia Stevens. "It's that there's someone among us capable of such calculated and prolonged cruelty." Detective Webb intensified the investigation, now with substantial physical evidence, but also with the disturbing certainty that they were dealing with a criminal of sophistication and sadism beyond anything they had imagined. The cistern discovery had answered some questions about Samantha Wilson's fate, but had raised many more questions about the nature of the predator, who remained free and, apparently, still obsessed with his victim. And, for the Wilson family, the macabre discovery meant only one thing: their nightmare was far from over. Today, more than 4 years after Samantha Wilson's disappearance, the case remains officially unsolved, but the collected evidence paints the disturbing portrait of one of the most meticulously planned and psychologically cruel crimes in American criminal history. Detective Marcus Webb, now leading a task force of 6 investigators dedicated exclusively to the case, has developed a criminal profile based on forensic evidence and behavioral analysis. "We're dealing with someone with extensive knowledge of police procedures and forensic techniques," Webb explains. "The use of formaldehyde, the chemical cleaning of the cistern, the strategic positioning of evidence, this isn't amateur work." 3 main theories emerge from complete analysis of the evidence. The first, considered most likely by investigators, suggests that Samantha was victim of a predator with training in law enforcement or forensic science. The way he avoided leaving identifiable evidence, but deliberately left clues to torment us, indicates someone familiar with criminal investigation, observes Dr. Patricia Reynolds, criminal psychologist and FBI consultant. The second theory proposes that the criminal is someone from the Cedar Falls community itself, possibly even someone involved in the initial investigation. This possibility explains the intimate knowledge of Samantha's routine and access to police reports found in her folder. The most terrifying reality is that we might have been looking for someone who was helping in the search, Webb admits, with evident discomfort. The third theory, more disturbing, suggests that the crime was committed by multiple perpetrators working in coordination. The DNA from 3 different individuals found in the evidence, combined with the operation's sophistication, indicates possible conspiracy. Crimes of this level of complexity are rarely the work of a single person, explains Dr. Michael Foster, forensic specialist. Crucial elements of the case remain completely inexplicable. The unidentified female DNA found on Samantha's jacket doesn't correspond to any known person in her life, and genetic analysis suggests it belongs to someone between 25 to 35 years old at the time of the crime. More intriguing is the presence of pollen from a rare orchid species found only in specialized greenhouses, a detail that opened a completely new line of investigation. The monitoring equipment found in the cistern proved to be of military manufacture, available only through specialized suppliers that require background checks. This significantly narrows the suspect profile, Webb explains. We're looking for someone with access to military or law enforcement equipment. The current state of the investigation remains active, with the case receiving substantial resources from the state of Iowa and ongoing FBI consultation. More advanced DNA analysis is being conducted using genetic sequencing technology that can reveal detailed physical characteristics of the perpetrators. Each technological advancement gives us new hope, Webb affirms. For the Wilson family, the search for answers has become an obsession that defines their lives. Linda Wilson now works part-time as an advocate for families of missing persons, channeling her pain into helping others facing similar traumas. Robert transformed his garage into a permanent command center, maintaining regular communication with investigators and tracking development of similar cases nationally. Tyler Martinez never married, unable to form lasting relationships after Samantha's traumatic loss. Part of me died with her, he confesses. I can't imagine loving someone the same way again. The Cedar Falls community remains permanently altered. The city installed a comprehensive security camera system, and the police department developed rapid response protocols for missing persons that became a model for other small jurisdictions. The Samantha Wilson case represents more than an unsolved crime. It's a macabre reminder that sophisticated evil can exist even in apparently safest communities. While investigators continue following leads and analyzing evidence, one question haunts everyone involved. Where is Samantha Wilson, and is her killer still watching, awaiting his next opportunity to torment those who never stopped searching for her? To this day, no one has the answer.